Hey everyone, and thank you for tuning in to History by AI, the channel where I share true stories from different subjects written by AI. Today I'll tell you the incredible story of Nintendo, the gaming giant that has shaped the video game industry for decades. You'll learn how Nintendo was founded in 1889 by Fusajari Yamaguchi, who made playing cards called Hanafuda. You'll also learn how Nintendo entered the video game industry in the 1970s and how it created some of the most iconic games and characters of all time. And you'll see how AI helped me write this story and create the images that you're going to be seeing in this video. So get ready for the history of Nintendo written by AI. Let's get started. Nintendo is one of the most influential gaming companies in the world, but it did not start out as a video game maker. It began as a small shop in Kyoto, Japan that produced handmade playing cards called Hanafuda. The founder of Nintendo was Fusajiro Yamauchi, who started the business in 1889. He named it Nintendo, which means leave luck to heaven in Japanese. Hanafuda cards were popular in Japan, especially among gamblers and gangsters known as Yakuza. They had colorful pictures of flowers, animals, and symbols instead of numbers or suits. Nintendo cards were of high quality and craftsmanship, and soon Yamauchi had to hire more workers to keep up with the demand. He also licensed third-party card graphics such as Disney characters. Yamauchi did not have a son to inherit the business, so he adopted his son-in-law, Sekiro Kaneda, who became the second president of Nintendo in 1929. Kaneda established a joint venture with another company and renamed Nintendo to Yamauchi Nintendo & Co. He also founded a distribution company called Marufuku Co. Limited to sell Nintendo cards and other products. Kaneda also had only daughters, so he adopted his grandson, Hiroshi Yamauchi, who became the third president of Nintendo in 1949. Hiroshi was only 22 years old when he took over the company, and he was a visionary and ambitious leader. He wanted to expand Nintendo into different fields besides cards making, such as toys and amusement arcades. In the 1960s, Nintendo hired Gunpei Yokoi an engineer who created innovative toys and gadgets for the company. One of them was the Ultra Hand, a mechanical arm that could extend and grab objects. It was a huge hit and sold over 1 million units. Yokio also invented the love tester, a device that measured the electrical currents between two people holding hands. In the 1970s, Nintendo entered the video game industry by producing arcade games and home consoles. One of their first arcade games was a computer, Otahelio, a digital version of the board game Otahelio. Another was EVR Race, a horse racing game that used video projection technology. Their first home console was the Color TV games, which had several variations that played different games. They also introduced features such as the D-pad, directional pad, and dual screen display that would later be used in other Nintendo products. In 1980, Nintendo released the Game & Watch series, handheld devices that played simple games on LCD screens. They were designed by Yokio and were very... In 1981, Nintendo released Donkey Kong, an arcade game that featured a gorilla named Donkey Kong who threw barrels at a carpenter named Jumpman, later renamed Mario. The game was created by Shigeru Miyamoto, a young artist who joined Nintendo in 1977. Donkey Kong was a breakthrough hit for the Nintendo and introduced two of their most iconic characters, Donkey Kong and Mario. In 1983, Nintendo launched the family computer, Famicom, in Japan, a home console that could play interchangeable cartridges with different games. The Famicom was redesigned and released as the Nintendo Entertainment System, NES for short, in North America and Europe in 1985 and 1986 respectively. The NES was a huge success and revived the video game industry after the crash of 1983. It also introduced many classic games such as Super Mario Bros., The Legend of Zelda, Metroid, Kirby's Adventures, and more. In 1989, Nintendo released the Game Boy, a handheld console that could play cartridges with different games. It was redesigned by Yokio and had a monochrome screen and a long battery life. The Game Boy was another hit for Nintendo and sold over 100 million units worldwide. It also came with Tetris, a puzzle game that became one of the best-selling games of all time. The Game Boy also had accessories such as the Game Link cable, which allowed players to connect their devices and play multiplayer games. In 1990, Nintendo released the Super Famicom, Super NES in Japan, a 16-bit console that had improved graphics and sound compared to the Famicom or NES. It was released in North America and Europe in 1991 and 1992 respectively. The Super NES competed with Sega Mega Drive Genesis in what became known as the Console Wars. The Super NES had many acclaimed games such as Super Mario World. Thank you for watching part 1 of our history of Nintendo, written by AI. This was a fascinating and fun story about Nintendo and how it became one of the most influential gaming companies in the world. In part 2, we'll continue our story and see how Nintendo faced new challenges and opportunities in the new millennium with more groundbreaking games and consoles. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.